My name is Tina Hart, and I'm the principal investigator for this project, and I'm the director of cultural resources for Logan Simpson. Logan Simpson is an environmental consulting firm offering cultural resources services, and we are lucky enough to collaborate with the Utah State Historic Preservation Office and the Utah Rock Art Research Association to conduct some revisits of formally documented rock imagery locations in central Utah, in Sevier, Carbon, and Sanpete counties.
Hi, I am Savannah Agarty, the compliance archaeologist for the Utah State Historic Preservation Office, or the Utah SHPO. The Utah SHPO represents Utah citizens in regards to cultural heritage. The Logan Simpson Rock Imagery Project aims to document archaeological sites, particularly rock imagery sites or rock art sites, that the Utah Rock Art Research Association has spent years gathering data on. The URARA was generous enough to share their data with us, the Utah SHPO, and we were able to have professionals like Logan Simpson come out and document these to help land managers effectively manage these resources, which leads to their preservation.
This project is really special for us because most consultants conduct our work within the context of Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act says that federal agencies must take into account the effects of their undertakings on cultural resources. Undertakings are any federal projects that involve federal money, federal permits, or federal lands, such as building of new transmission lines or expansion of interstate highways, or vegetation management within the national forests. But this project is a little different. There's no undertaking associated with this project. The State Historic Preservation Office was able to find a way to consult with Logan Simpson to make sure these resources are documented to modern archaeological standards so that land managers can manage and preserve them appropriately.
The Utah SHPO has come together in this project with Logan Simpson and various land managing agencies, including Fremont Indian State Park, where we are today, so these land managing agencies can have a better documentation and therefore more effectively manage these archaeological sites that they have on their land, which ultimately leads to their preservation and protection. Preservation is one of the Utah SHPO's most important missions. In order to properly preserve cultural resources, which include archaeological sites and historic buildings, we first must know what resources we have. Utah can be particularly challenging in this regard because our state is very vast and remote, and there are likely thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of archaeological sites that are undocumented.
My name is Troy Scotter. I live in Utah County. I'm a board member with both the Utah Rock Art Research Association and the American Rock Art Research Association. This is an exciting project. So our URARA members, we're out walking around in the desert all the time. And we just come upon rock art sites and we take our personal notes and we have a GPS location and photographs. And what we eventually did was we created our own database of sites because we knew about a lot more sites than the government did. And so we gave it to the government. But the government didn't really know what to do with our data because we're not professional archaeologists. And so the nice thing about this project is that we're working with professional archaeologists to document the sites that we've known about so that they can get into the official government record.
As part of this project, we're engaging with those same volunteers from the Utah Rock Art Research Association. And so for me, it's personally just very gratifying to see this project come full circle to those who cared enough to collect that data in the first place.
My name's Robert Van Orden, and I'm a member of the Utah Rock Art Research Association, and we call ourselves URARA. I traveled 900 miles just to be a part of this project with the Utah State Historic Preservation Office. Where I live, we have free birdwatching field trips every Saturday. And the bird watchers, they're just crazy about birds. They know everything. And they're just flat out crazy. They love birds. And some people love football. And some people love deer hunting. But we love rock art. This is what we love.
So Kirk, you're volunteering, right?
Yeah.
So what motivated you to volunteer?
Well, I've been a long-time URARA member, and I'm always looking for opportunities to record rock art sites. I'm a rock art fanatic, and when I heard it was going to be up here in 9 Mile Canyon, I love this place, so I spent a lot of time up here and thought I might be able to come up and help record some lesser known sites. After having a career in another field, I realized I kind of missed my calling. I started doing some volunteer work with Archaeology Southwest, and I really liked it. So I decided to go back to school and get a master's and focus on rock art at the U of A. I graduated in May 2020, and my research was trying to see if we couldn't come up with a relative chronology for dating petroglyphs based on the varnish.
Having volunteers involved in a project like this, like members of URARA, is essential to involving Utah citizens in the protection and the management of our own cultural heritage. Everybody has a stake in and right to shared cultural heritage, and having volunteers like the URARA members is essential to improving inclusivity and cultural heritage, as well as supporting land managing agencies that have a lot of acres and do not necessarily have the archaeological support to manage the large amount of archaeological resources in the state of Utah.
So I was out with a friend, and we had planned to go to a campground down in the desert. It was full, it was dark. We just pulled off the side of the road and set up our tents. And I woke up the next morning and looked up, and we had camped underneath this huge painted rock art site. And here were these great 6 feet tall red painted figures on the wall. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm not sure we should be here. I don't know what it is. And so I just came home and I started doing some research. And this was back in the early days of the internet, and there wasn't a lot there, and I eventually found some books and started going out and looking for some more sites, and then I eventually founded the Utah Rock Art Group. It made all the difference for me because, you know, they were doing monthly field trips, and the very first one I went on was to a site that I'd learned about, but I didn't know how to get there, and they took me to that site, and they taught me about the site. I remember the very first site I went to was a famous site in Utah. It's actually been in National Geographic. It's called the Rochester Creek site. And I wanted to know what it meant. And so we went down there with the group and I said, okay, what does it mean? And they all laughed at me and they said, it's a great question. We don't have any idea, but you know, we want to learn more.
It's important that we be mindful and respectful when we visit these sites in relation to what they mean and their interpretation. As archaeologists, we can make some basic assumptions about the site. For example, what figures there are, and potentially typing the site to a specific time period, such as the Fremont period, as the rock imagery panel is behind me. However, assigning meaning to this rock imagery can be disrespectful of affiliated Native American tribes. Therefore, we should leave what this rock imagery means, or the interpretation of this rock imagery, to the affiliated tribes that made this rock imagery, such as the Paiute, the Ute, and the Shoshone.
I am a very place-oriented person, and to come here and see these images packed into these rocks here, you know, this place meant something to somebody at some time, and we don't know what that is, but it meant enough for them to come and create these images on the rocks. And while this place does mean something to me, and it may mean something to you too, it meant something to them as well. And it's just very interesting to go back to these places on the landscape and think that you are standing in the same place that somebody was standing 1,000 years ago and chose to create this imagery here. And just looking out along the landscape and seeing the same views that they saw, and maybe for a minute having somewhat of the same feelings, but from a totally different perspective.
What would you want the public to know about rock art?
Enjoy the site, take lots of pictures. It's okay to tell your friends, especially if it's a public site, but make sure you don't touch the rock art. We don't want to damage it in any way. Don't dig, because if there are artifacts below the ground, we want professional archaeologists to uncover those. And be careful about what you post on the internet, because a lot of our new modern pictures from cameras, especially from cell phones, embed the location of the site. So if it's not a well-known site, if it's not a public site, if you put it on the internet, people who know how to get that data out of the picture will all of a sudden know where a lot of sites are. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because we haven't planned to protect all of the sites that we have in Utah.
It's important that we do not touch the rock art with our hands, as that can damage the rock imagery or the petroglyphs and pictographs. And it's also important that we don't carve our names into the rock art and create vandalism. On this panel above me, we have a few people who have etched their names into the rock imagery, and that can be regarded as extremely disrespectful, not only to Native American tribes, but to the state park who manages this site, and also to Utah citizens, because this is all our shared cultural heritage.
When we come to a site and we see people have scratched their names over the rock art, we just cry, because some of this rock art is 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years old, and once it's been destroyed, it can never be fixed. Please don't destroy something that's irreplaceable.
If anyone is interested in learning more about rock imagery, I highly suggest visiting Fremont Indian State Park. It's off of Interstate I-70 near Richfield. Very publicly accessible rock art that everybody can enjoy no matter what your mobility situation may be. And there is a nice visitor center with interpretive materials where you can learn more about not only the Fremont Indians, but also those who came after, such as the Paiute, the Ute, Shoshone, and the pioneers of Utah.
If you want to learn about rock art, come join us. Come be part of URARA, and we have all kinds of people, and we're definitely very dedicated to what we do. I definitely love rock art, and I really love archaeology, and I love the academic aspect of it. But it is just a great excuse to get out into nature, and 49% of what I love is just getting out into the wilderness and going to places where I would never go for any other reason.
So you mentioned SHPO, which is the State Historical Preservation Office. And they have a public program, and so anybody who's interested in any aspect of archaeology, including rock art, you can locate them on the web. It's the Utah Public Archaeology Network. And they're a great resource. And we have a wealth of archaeology in Utah. We're probably one of the most archaeologically rich places in the United States.
The Utah Cultural Site Stewardship Program is a new statewide program housed at the Utah State Historic Preservation Office. It was created by the legislature in 2020, who not only recognized the importance of preserving Utah's cultural heritage, but also involving Utah's own citizens in the protection of that cultural heritage. The Utah Cultural Site Stewardship Program aims to involve a diverse group of people as cultural site stewards, as well as to protect and monitor a diverse set of archaeological sites from the historic to the prehistoric periods. You can visit our website to learn more about the Utah State Cultural Site Stewardship Program, and also to sign up to become a Utah Cultural Site Steward.
Over the course of 2 field sessions, the project team visited 147 GPS points, some of which were originally collected by the same volunteers who ultimately helped document them. The project resulted in the documentation of 18 newly recorded sites and updates for 53 previously recorded sites. A variety of rock imagery stylistic traditions were documented during the project. The basin and range tradition is dominated by abstract imagery such as circles, spirals, wavy lines, and sometimes bighorn sheep and stick figure anthropomorphs, which is a term used for human forms. The basin and range tradition co-occurs with other rock imagery styles and dates from the Archaic through late prehistoric periods. The Barrier Canyon style is characterized by large anthropomorphic red pictographs. This style was identified at 2 sites in the project area, one of which contains a large anthropomorphic torso and another which contains a complex scene that measures only 9 inches across and 4 inches tall. This style predates Fremont and is stylistically distinct from other archaic rock imagery traditions. Glen Canyon Style 5 is characterized by large rectangular-bodied sheep, oftentimes with interior decoration. This style was observed at several sites and usually alongside other stylistic traditions. This style is interpreted as an Archaic period tradition. Fremont traditions dominated the imagery and include the Sevier and Northern San Rafael styles. Fremont imagery is known for its trapezoidal anthropomorphs. Anthropomorphs in the Sevier style are generally smaller and less decorated than in other Fremont traditions. The severe style also incorporates more abstract motifs, such as those common in the basin and range tradition. The Northern San Rafael style includes more zoomorphs, or animal forms, than neighboring Fremont traditions, with game animals almost always accompanying the anthropomorphs. Ute-style imagery was identified at several sites. Subject matter includes horses with or without riders, bison or buffalo, guns, and automobiles. Paiute imagery within Fremont Indian State Park depicts railroads and buildings. As a result of this project, Logan Simpson and URARA added 18 newly recorded sites to the official record, and these important places can now be preserved by land managers. This project has been an amazing collaboration between Logan Simpson, the Utah State Historic Preservation Office, URARA, and all the land managers have provided a lot of support and encouragement for this project, including the United States Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and the Utah School Institutional Trust Lands Administration, as well as Fremont Indian State Park. And we want to give thanks to our collaborators on this.